what up, everybody? I'm Adam. You're listening to the Ferment Podcast, and today my guest is Phil Chorlian from the North Jersey Vineyard. What up, Phil?
Hey, Adam. Hey, everybody. Good to be with you.
Oh, man, so glad to have you on for our COVID check-in. I've been wanting to get with you for a couple weeks because I know that you guys are kind of in the thick of it.
We are. It's crazy. You know, this Sunday, I was realizing this is going to be our 8th live stream. So it's been like 2 months of being in this reality. But to be honest, it feels kind of like 2 years. You know, it's been intense. It really, I think in some ways, it's been the most intense ministry period I've had. You know, it's been something.
Well, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, and there's a couple reasons I wanted to talk to you. One, just being your proximity to New York City and the way that this has touched both the city, but then also Jersey has been profoundly impacted. But I also know that you and your family had your own touch and your own bout with COVID-19. Can you just tell me about that and tell me how you're feeling?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we were early adapters on this whole COVID-19 thing. Just a little bit about the area where we're at. You know, we're right outside of New York City. And so I think when you think about the impact of New York City, the reason North Jersey is so included in that is because there's so many people who live around here who get on buses and subways and then bring it back to their homes and whatnot. And so and we've got, my county is the hardest hit of all the counties. And so we've just, you know, it's just a lot. So personally, our deal with this, and just thinking about the dates too, it was, my wife is a 4th grade school teacher. And so on I think it was Tuesday, March 10th, she had a parent teacher conference, just the normal, you know, 30 minutes sitting across a desk from somebody. And on Thursday, she got an email from that parent saying, hey, that night, you know, Tuesday night, I started to get sick. And I had a flu test, and the flu test came back negative. You know, I hope you're feeling okay. And so we were kind of like, I wonder what that is. And at that point, we didn't know anybody who had the virus. It really hadn't, you know, we heard maybe a little bit here and there, but it really hadn't gotten to the point where it was, you know, it was ubiquitous as a god. So by Sunday night, the 15th, that was the first day that we did our first live stream. And we tried at first to do it live, and then we realized, well, that's a problem. That doesn't work. So I got back from the church, and she actually that afternoon drove my daughter Maggie back to her apartment in Philadelphia, and she was feeling fine, and dropped Maggie off in Philadelphia. And she says about halfway back of the drive back, it's about a 2-hour drive to Philly, she started to feel, first it was like this real bad lower back pain. And then by the time she got home, she was sick. I mean, she had a fever, she was coughing, she had body aches all over. And so we're kind of putting 2 and 2 together with the parent teacher conference and thinking, you know, so the first couple of nights she was, you know, she had a very high fever, night sweats, you know, all of that. At the time, it was me and Norma and my twin daughters, Lily and Sophie, who were home. They'd come back for a week of a college break that just never ended. So by Tuesday, Lily and I were sick. By Wednesday, we found out Thursday morning that Maggie was sick because she'd been in the car with Norma for a couple of hours. So I ended up having to drive down to Philly to get her because she's in there with roommates, and one of her roommates had a heart condition, and, you know, just had to get her back. And, you know, because at that point I knew I had a fever, you know, I knew I was sick. So it was one of the challenging thing was that knew that like rest areas were not an option. So we just drove down, you know, got her in the car. She threw her stuff in and we headed back home. And and then my daughter, Sophie, she was in the house the whole time, kind of trying to hide out in her room. She never had any symptoms, but our sense is that she had it and was asymptomatic.
Isn't that one of the weirdest parts though? This is the part for me that just blows my mind. Some people get it and get very sick, you know?
Yeah.
Some people get it and get very, very sick, like ventilator or worse.
Oh yeah.
And then some people get it and they're completely asymptomatic. That's the part that kind of blows my mind on this.
Well, that's what they're finding is they say up to maybe 50% of the people who have it are asymptomatic. And so in our house, you know, Norma, she was probably, you know, she was the sickest out of all of us. And so she had a pretty high fever. me and Lily, my fever for about a week, I had a fever, about 100 degrees, 99 and a half, 100 degrees, cough, body aches, just exhausted, just really, really exhausted. Um, we all lost our sense of smell and taste, which
Really?
is an interesting thing. And so, yeah. And there were a couple days, I'd say, with how it kind of, played out, there were a couple of days that I was really worried about my wife, because I think that's one of the things about this is, just there's a lot of anxiety because you don't know, is it going to turn, and I was finding out everything that I could find out, everything they knew at the time about COVID. And what I heard is that for a lot of people, it can be mild, and all of a sudden it could just go into another level, and you could need to be hospitalized. And so I would find, obviously Norm and I weren't sleeping in the same room at that point. And so I would get up usually first and just be anxious, like, is everybody okay? Until I was able to check in with everyone and how's your breathing? How were you during the night? And so that was, there was like a level of anxiety that was there. That was kind of rough. And so there were a couple of days where my wife's breathing was not good. And, it didn't get to the point where we felt like we got to go to the hospital, but it seemed to be progressing that way. And so I was, just so thankful once things started to turn around. And she ended up, because that parent ended up having a positive test. And at that time, it was really hard to get a test. It was, you'd have to go, there were people waiting in lines for like all night long, like 8 hours, it's a community college a mile from my house. The lines, I went one morning to say, well, maybe we'll see what this is like now that this opened up. And it opened at 8. I drove by at 7 and the line was like half a mile long. And it's like,
My
okay,
goodness.
well, we're not going to do that. But she was able to get an appointment and was able to go in and be tested. And so I think it was on the 20th that she was tested. And then the results came back on the 27th that she was positive. By that time, we were all feeling better, so we weren't surprised because we had all the symptoms, but we were at that point realizing that, okay, this is mild. And, I think Norm is recovering. We're all feeling better. So it was, feeling like, okay, we've kind of come through that. And, just the symptoms were like you said, it like hits people in different ways. My daughter, Maggie and Lily, they would have really like lower back pain. They called it COVID butt, that they would just like, it just really, just really hurt. And so it was, but it was an intense couple of weeks just because we didn't know where this was going to go,
Yeah. Okay. So that's your family. Tell me about your church. How has COVID-19 touched your church? Because you have a not small church right there next to the city. And I'm sure lots and lots of your people are working in Jersey and working in Manhattan and everything.
Yeah. So what happened, it was just waves, it's really kind of the best thing to explain. We set up early on in our church, we set up an online COVID-19 assistance request form and just saying, if you're sick, if you need food, because what happens is if you have it in your house, you're all on lockdown. I mean, you can't go anywhere, you can't go out. So you've got to figure out how to get food to people. And so it was on, I think it was the 22nd. It was Norm and I were home Sunday, the 22nd. We're watching the live stream because we can't leave the house. So we're watching it like everybody else. And I got a text from this woman in my church named Diana, young mom. She's in her early 30s, had at the time 4-year-old daughter who subsequently had her 5th birthday. But she texted me and said, hey, Juan, her husband, drove himself to the hospital last night and he's watching the live stream and it would mean a lot for him to hear from you. And so as soon as the live stream was over, I called him. And it's funny, it's emotions got to hit me a little bit because it was a lot. And so I talked to him. They'd been a part of our church for a while, and he had just been baptized. Our last baptism service was in December, and so he'd been baptized. So I called him, and he's coughing, and he's like, yeah, he's asking about my family, how we are, and saying I think I'm probably going to have to be here a few days. My oxygen levels are pretty good, and so then I'm texting him, for the next few days. And the next day he's like, I'm feeling better. It's better in the morning, gets worse at night. The next day he said that he said, I'm getting a little concerned. My oxygen levels are going down. And so I'm texting back and forth. And the last thing that he sent me was the picture. When we do baptisms, we have a slide with the picture of the person and their favorite Bible verse. And he sent me that picture. And he said, I know God is with me. And the next day he had to be ventilated. And he died 2.5 weeks after that.
My goodness. So what I'm hearing you say is this is deeply impacted your church.
Oh, it's yeah. I mean, that was, that's the one person, thank God, who's, we only had one person who's passed away, but that was devastating. But it was, the thing about the kind of the whole process, we've all, as pastors, we deal with really hard, we deal with things, but there was so much, so there's, this one guy, Mateo, in my church. He and his wife been a part of the church forever. He's a teenage son who's in our youth group. He owns a restaurant. He's our go-to caterer guy. And he, comes here every Thursday we have a team of people who volunteer to help get ready for the service. He's part of that crew. I heard he was sick. And so I called him in the afternoon, and his wife answered because he was on a teleconference call with his doctor. And his wife said he's coughing, but he's feeling better. And so then I called him that night, and he was coughing just so badly he couldn't talk. I could hear that he couldn't get a breath. And he said, I'm going to the hospital. And so he and his wife drove to the hospital. And then his wife called me from the parking lot, because the way it works is you bring your loved one to the door of the hospital. You can't go in with them. And so she's sitting in the parking lot, crying, worried about him. And he's on a ventilator the next day. And I'm trying. Hard to keep track of how many people. I mean, I would say at least 50 people in my church had the virus and were home. Probably, it might even, I've asked some people because I don't want to, I want to be accurate. It could be close to 100 because, we're doing a thing now. We're calling, we're trying to call all the members, and just a lot of the people are saying like, yeah, I'm sick, but I'm okay. I didn't want to bother anybody. So it was a lot. It was, trying to figure out how to get food to people. One of the things that was a blessing is that I'd be on the phone for hours every day, just calling, all the different people, being able to say when they're scared and they're worried, and say, hey, listen, the majority of people are going to have it the way I had it. And so you're going to, you're just going to rest at home. You're going to be okay. A very small percentage need to go to the hospital. And so that was, that comforted people. So that was good. But there was just a lot of, a number of people in the hospital. I remember this one woman, she had it and was getting worse. And so I called her right before she was going to head to the hospital. And I could just hear the fear in her voice, and it just kind of broke it was just like, man, this is rough. This is an evil thing. This is the level of fear and anxiety and just with everything on lockdown and all of that. It's been an intense time, and it's been a lot, a lot of people.
Yeah. So Phil, one of the questions I had, and you even sort of pointed at it there in the last little thing you said, I'm just wondering, how has your church responded? What are some of the ways that you reached out? I know you said you set up a page on your website and you delivered food. Just anything else?
Yeah, no, there's been a lot. I'll tell you what, my church, I'm really, really proud of the way that the staff has responded, that we've all responded. I have multiple people on my staff who are dealing with it. I've got two people who work full time for the church. One, her father is in a nursing facility. He's actually in a hospital now, and he's not doing well. Someone else, her daughter just tested positive, so she's in quarantine because she's been exposed. So we've all, this is just something that's affecting, it's just right there. But we have a long list of people who are on that COVID-19 assistance request form. We have a longer list of volunteers, of people who are trying to help, and so we're calling people just to check in, just to pray for them. And we're really developing our food distribution ministry. And it started just organically. And it's like, okay, well, here's a dozen people that we got to get food to. And now it's grown to every Friday. You know, we got lots of people just bringing donations. We're starting to get some connections with some food banks and just kind of organically seeing it grow. So right now we do food deliveries, you know, staples to 30 to 40 people. I think that was what we did last week, and that's kind of just increasing. And so we're getting ready to think about how we're going to transition that from deliveries to when we're ready to just opening it up to the wider community, because I think that's going to be the next phase of this, is just the economic hardship that's not unique to where we are. That's something that we're all facing, you know, all over the country. So just, you know, we put out a call when we realized that the food distribution need was getting beyond what we could do. We just, you know, we do daily devotionals online and just different ways to try to get the word out. Was just overwhelmed. You know, we had one entrance that we could leave open securely so people could drop off food. And it's just a ton of food that people were bringing in. And so
Yeah.
I said on, you know, this last Friday delivery, I said, I think we brought people too much food because we did 3 bags for each person who got it, you know. And
That's so great though.
So it's been good. It's been really, that part of it has been really encouraging.
Well, clearly, like here in Kentucky, we haven't been touched by COVID anywhere near in the way that you all have. But one of the things I hear in what you're saying that definitely overlaps with even what we're experiencing at our church is people just want to help.
Yeah.
And so, you know, people are wide open to give their time, their energy, their money to anyone who's in need. And I think that's been one of the beautiful things about this is it's just exposed how much the church is able to help and really wants to help.
Yeah. Some other ways too that our church has responded, particularly with Diana. She's the one whose husband passed away. So that, you know, that whole, the roller coaster ride of, you know, like just being aware of oxygen levels and what percent of, you know, is it 100%, is he vented 100%? Is it vented 80%? You know, there's just this kind of daily roller coaster ride. And so Diana was just reaching out and we were able, Norma and I, we would just see God causes all things to work together for good. And it ended up being a blessing that we had it early, because Norma and I were able to be present in situations that we wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So Juan died on a Saturday, and the Wednesday we had a day of prayer and fasting for Juan, Mateo, and this other guy, Eddie, who was in the hospital, who was in bad shape, who's now home and is doing well. But Diana, right before I got on the Facebook Live to lead the prayer time for the prayer and fasting, I got a call from Diana that the doctor had said he's probably not going to make it, and you need to be ready for that. And she wasn't. You know, I mean, how can you be ready for that? And her prayer was that her husband would be able to be off the ventilator by her daughter's 5th birthday, which was April 12th. And so it was just, you know, she was just a wreck. And so as soon as that was over, I left the church and I said, "Hey, Norma, we got to drive up and see Diana." And so she's like, "Of course." And so we tried to be as care, you know, we got antibodies, and she was sick, but wasn't severely, your symptoms weren't severe. And so we drove up and were able to, you know, we didn't hug her, we had masks on, but we were able to be present with her, which we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. On that Friday, Diana said to me, "Is, you know, things weren't good, we were looking bad." And she's like, "I just have this vision of people going up to the hospital." She lives a little bit north of where we are. So it wasn't one of the local hospitals here. And so we had, I think it was 30 cars drove up to just drive laps around the hospital and pray. And then they all stopped in a parking lot and prayed together. And it probably was, I think, 25 or 30 cars, but like 50 people. You know, so just seeing people respond that way. And then I got a text from her on Saturday that Juan had a really bad night, but they were going to let her go see him. To which what I thought is, I think, you know, I didn't say this to her, but I thought, I think they're going to let her say goodbye. Well, then I got a frantic call from her because she got there, and he had passed away 2 hours earlier, and she didn't. Somehow there'd been a miscommunication, and she didn't know that. And so Norma and I were able, you know, her daughter was in the parking lot with Juan's mother and his aunt and uncle. And so Norma and I were able to go up there and meet them. And Norma drove Diana home because Diana couldn't drive, and we were able to spend the whole day with her. And, you know, and then I was able to, on Monday, when Diana and I were dealing with the arrangements in the funeral home, I brought my daughter Maggie, and she was able to be with me the whole time and deal with that. So you know what? It's it's a small thing, but I'm glad that we were able to be present in that way. And so between my being able to tell people, hey, you know what, it probably won't be that bad, because of there's a lot of fear and people didn't really know because of what we had gone through, but then also kind of being able to be present, and then what happened on Mia's birthday, Norma and Maggie were able to go up and have cake and celebrate, and between the town that they lived in, people from the church and relatives, that about 100 cars drive by to wish me a happy birthday and leave presents on her front yard. And I think they were there were fire trucks and EMS, all these cars with their lights on and stuff. So just seeing the church, an opportunity kind of for the church to be the church, has been really, has been beautiful in a very horrible situation.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm glad that you guys were able to be present. What a gift in such a dark moment.
Yeah, they're just glad to be able. You just want to do anything that you can when somebody's going through that, and so we're glad that we could. Yeah.
All right, Phil. I'm wondering if you're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel now. Does it feel like that?
Well, it's funny. It was, and then I had a couple people on my staff who, it's now we're dealing with that, and Mateo, which is just, and that's the weird thing about this virus. Mateo is an older guy. Juan's young. Juan, I think, had just turned 40. Mateo's older with a whole lot of other, preconditions. And he came off the ventilator last week. I got a call from Fanny on a Sunday afternoon, and she was hysterical. And I thought, oh no. But then all of a sudden I realized, oh no, she's happy hysterical. And so he came off the ventilator a little bit over a week ago and been on for 2.5 weeks and sedated. And so he's still in the hospital. He can't talk. It's going to take a while for him to get his strength back, but that was good. I think right now, other than Mateo's recovery, we have people who are sick, maybe on the tail end, maybe awaiting a test. We've got Sue's father isn't doing well. He's the one who's in a nursing home. But I'm not aware, there aren't other people in critical condition right now, so that's different. So it feels like maybe, it's turned a little bit of a corner in that kind of initial intensity. But the way this thing goes, you just don't know, you just don't know, what it's going to evolve into or how it's going to play out.
Phil, how long do you think it's going to be before you get to have church, like all together in your building?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think about what that's going to look like. I certainly know whatever the country does in opening things up, New York, New Jersey is going to be last in line. So I don't know. I really, it's, I mean, we've got a huge parking lot, so maybe we could do some kind of a drive-in thing. But we have a really good relationship with the town, and they've we've had some communication and trying to do some things together to, with our food bank. And so I wouldn't want to do anything that would make them feel that we're being reckless or we're kind of rushing it.
Of course.
So we're locked into this live stream reality, and we've got all of our small groups on Zoom, and, we're ramping up this food distribution ministry. And so we'll see what, I mean, at some point, we have this beautiful new lobby that was just finished, and my hope and vision was it would be filled with people, but right now it's filled with food. So that's okay. Yeah.
When we all do get to be together in the same room again, it's going to explode.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, who knows what that's going to look like, maybe it'll have to be like having lots of services with a cap of 100 people on it, or, once everything does open up, I think people are, I said this to someone, I said, I think some of the people who would come to church once or twice a week, I think they're going to be once or twice a month, they're going to be a little bit more regular,
That's
just
right.
kind of now,
that's right.
Realizing kind of what they were missing out on and appreciating it more.
Yeah, I think you're right. Phil, just as we wrap here, I would love for you to just maybe articulate for us, how can we pray for your church and just the area that you live in?
I think just to pray for the people who have COVID, to pray that it doesn't morph into something life-threatening. I think to pray that God would give us wisdom to, it's kind of like we have this assignment, that's in front of us, and that we would, not run ahead and try to do too much, not lag behind, but just kind of stay right in step with Jesus, with what he'd have us do. I'm starting now to see some people in crisis, not because they're sick, but because of the fact that for the first time in their life, they're having to get an unemployment check, or they're just, really mourning, like they've, like even my kids, came back from school for a week, and who knows, they don't even know if they're going to be able to go back in the fall. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. So I'm starting to see that begin to take a toll on people as well. And so just that we'd be able to really pastor people through all the different aspects and phases of this, wisely and lovingly.
That's great. That's great. Those are good words, and we'll definitely pray. So if you're on the podcast and you're listening, just hold up the Jersey, New York area. Hold up Phil and his staff. That would be really, really great. Well, Phil, thank you for coming on, and thank you for giving us an update. It's good to hear it from someone who's actually in it.
Well, hey, no, it was a pleasure, and good to talk with you.
Yeah, and hopefully the next time it's totally different terms.
Yeah, well, it was funny. You and I saw each other in San Diego, and it was like basically got off the plane, and it was a few days later, it was a whole new reality.
Yeah, it's so weird. Heather and I got on the plane to go to San Diego, and it was we had talked about it, kind of. It was like, COVID, whatever. But whatever, it's California, San Diego, this is going to be great. When we touched down to come home, it was on.
Yeah.
So things change quickly. Let's pray that it goes the opposite direction just as quickly.
That would be great.
Amen.
I'm ready for that.
Amen. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks for being a part. And Phil, thanks for telling your story. And we'll continue to hold you up in prayer. Peace.
Okay. Thanks, Adam. Bye-bye.